Okay, we're back once again with OurGame Live, joined by Fintan O'Toole and Michael Verney of the 42 and the Irish Independent, respectively. Fintan, I'll start with you. How are you getting on?
All good, Shane, yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Michael?
Yeah, all good, Shane. Oh, yeah, all good.
Right, let's get straight to it. So we want to look at, we've three different topics today, which are hurlers that we didn't see enough of. We're also going to look at a sliding doors moment, which was Wexford in 2011, if they had to beat Dublin footballers that time. And then the third topic is, off the top of my head, what's the third topic again, Fintan?
Best rivalry.
Oh yeah, the best rivalry in GA. Right, let's go straight to it. The hurlers that we didn't see enough of, and one that kind of jumped to mind straight away was Conor Ryan of Clare, because he was so like, wasn't he man of the match in that All-Ireland final against Cork in 2013? Stirring display. Actually, himself and Seamus Hennessy both had great games, but of course it was his pituitary gland, his adrenaline kind of went against him after that, and he never saw Croke Park again after that final in 2013. Brilliant player and a massive loss, Fintan.
He certainly was. The 2013 drawing game, probably was the highlight of like a really, really good year for him, really big breakthrough. And like around that time when Clare were kind of bringing through a lot of guys from those 21 teams, naturally a lot of the focus was on the forwards, Tony Kelly, Podge Collins, Shane O'Donnell for what he did in that replay. But in a lot of ways, if you talk to people in Clare, some would argue that Ryan was probably a bigger addition at the time because he was solving a position for them at centre back. And the fact that it was allowing, Pat Donlan and Brendan Bugler, kind of more experienced players, to kind of play either side of him. And it was a really formidable half-back line that season. And looked like he could be the launch pad, and that he, I suppose maybe since Shawnee McMahon had been a bit of a problem position for the county. So you basically look like you finally found the guy that's going to fill it. And naturally, I suppose, in those kind of forecasts that supporters will do, you're thinking, right, we can build a team around this guy for the next decade. He would have been equally as comfortable in midfield, but I think it's a centre back where they really missed him, and probably kind of captures, I suppose, how it just didn't quite happen for Clare as a team, and obviously for individual reasons for a guy like him after that 2013 breakthrough.
Yeah, because it's interesting. He'd only gotten into the team, I think, in the Galway game in the All-Ireland quarter-final. Has a brilliant finish to the season, and he's gone so quickly. Went on to win, I think, the double with Cratloe, obviously Hurling football county titles. But yeah, definitely over too soon, Mike.
Definitely, Shane. We talked in a separate video about a couple of teams in Munster, how they're lacking a centre back. As Fintan says, he was their centre back and going to be their centre back for the guts of a decade. Probably, like, apart from goalkeeper, like the most important position on the field, probably. And it's such a difficult position to play. And he looked like there was so much scope for him to deliver and be that key man at number 6 for them for a long time. And it was gone far too soon. And off the pitch as well, just a lovely fella. And anytime I was ever chatting to him, you kind of feel so bad that his career was taken away from him, because the world was his oyster after 2013, really, and we just didn't get to see how good he could have been. I would love to see what he would have been like at 27 or 28. He would have been unbelievable, I'd say.
He wasn't the only one from that team either, because Darragh Conan was brilliant. Obviously scored the exclamation mark, the punctuation point of a goal in that replay. He was another guy, and obviously, like, the fact that he had to get stem cell treatment on his hip as well, he was trying to get that sorted. Much like Richie Power, who, of course, unlike the boys who had won one All-Ireland, he had won 8. And like, it's kind of funny, you'd almost wonder with Richie Power, how much more could he have won? Is it possible to win more if he could stay fit? Because even 2014, he scored 4 goals in the last 3 games as Kilkenny won an All-Ireland after a replay with Tipperary, and crucially scored that goal to turn the tide against Limerick in the semi-final. Like, how much more could he have done, Finn?
Definitely, there's probably a sense of, I guess, maybe kind of unfinished business, Kilkenny would argue. I mean, you think of like the 16 championship, like he kind of would have been a really experienced player, you'd imagine, to, like, you think if you had TJ Reid in the half forward and Richie Hogan at midfield, and if you had him and Colin Fennelly inside, that would have been a really big threat for Kilkenny to carry. I suppose different to some of the other guys that we'll talk about, in that he did achieve a lot. The impact you said in 2014, and he had 2 All-Star years, I think, in 10 and 11. But I suppose the fact that he just had to kind of retire a bit early, and he came into the side so young, and maybe at a time when Kilkenny's forward line, the experienced guys were pushing on, Shefflin, Eddie Brennan and these sort of lads, you'd be thinking that it was Power was going to kind of take over that team. But it's just, his knees gave up on him, and he just wasn't able to kind of keep going. The county demands. In fairness to him, he did come back and Shine at Croke Park again in the club intermediate final in 17. I remember him saying at that time that there was a guy, I think from Carrickshock, involved in the St Jude's club, and they drove up that day in the team bus, but he drove separately to go to Jude's to basically do some work on a bike for about 40 minutes, because he basically, that's it, had to do that, kind of warm it up, warm his knee up, and then he scored like 5 or 6 points, I think, from play against would have been the Manions of Galway at their club. So no mean feat. So it's kind of a nice way for him to, I suppose, end it in Croke Park, to kind of get an All-Ireland medal with his club at intermediate level. But definitely you'd think, Kilkenny probably would have been hoping that they would have got maybe another 3 or 4 years out of him.
Yeah.
Imagine Shane. Imagine in recent years how much of a foil he would have been for Richie and for TJ. All the pressure on TJ. Defenses would have had to look at, giving special attention to him. And if Richie didn't prosper, TJ or the other Richie was going to prosper as well. So I'd say it's a pity. He's managing Carrickshock now, so it's great to see him back involved and getting involved at management and club level and things like that. But he should probably just be winding up his county career at this stage or in the next year or two. So an unbelievable player, unbelievable pace. Broke ear hearts a couple of times, a couple of great goals in that 14 final. So I definitely have good memories of him as a result of that.
Jeez, I didn't realise you were a fully converted Kilkenny man at this stage. Are there any comments in actually of other players that viewers might have thought had their careers cut short?
Yeah, there's lots of interesting ones, to be honest with you. Andrew O'Shaughnessy is one that we've gotten in from a good few people. Obviously, was an All-Star in 07 and had sickness and different issues after that. We talk about Joe Canning being a prodigy at underage level. There's not too many more bigger prodigies than Andrew O'Shaughnessy, just with what he did with Coleman's and Fermoy and the Harty, and even at college's level as well. Absolutely outstanding player. A couple of lads in from Borough actually just writing in. They just wrote one word, and it's amazing how everybody can know someone with one word. They just wrote in Mongo. Adrian Cattle, absolute phenomenon by all accounts, and it's not just kind of talk now that people say that people get better when they're finished, but he was as good as Brian Whelan at minor, as good and touted as big a prodigy. Broke his leg. They were just messing around playing soccer, and he's about 18 or 19 down the pitch. Broke his leg playing soccer and was never really the same since. But an unbelievable talent. Won a Club All-Ireland outfield in 95 as well. Just a couple of other ones, interesting ones. Nisha Waldron in there, just saying Charlie Carter and Cha Fitzpatrick, which is, both probably left the scene as a result of kind of Brian Cody, captains under Cody. Cha twice an All-Star, Carter probably twice an All-Star as well. So there's been a couple of lads maybe that were cast aside a bit too early. Those two definitely stand out, two of the best players we've seen over the last 15 or 20 years.
I wonder how much more Joe Connolly would have done if he hadn't to get injured. And I think he was playing, I know his son, so he was saying it was a Mickey Mouse sort of a challenge game, and he ended up hurting his knee, retiring I think in 1984 at the age of 27. And when you think that Brendan Linsky played on till he was 35 or more, I mean, surely Joe Connolly would have made it to 1990 when he still would have been, something like 32, and he was in very, very good shape as well. So Galway he missed out on a couple of All-Irelands, and maybe Galway would have missed out on another All-Ireland because of the impact he could have had, Fintan.
Yeah, and the way the Galway history, the hurling story that they waited so long, the breakthrough in 80, and the way it probably started to go right for them then towards the end of the 80s. Obviously they won the 2 All-Irelands, then the controversy in 89 obviously, and then they reached All-Ireland final in 86, didn't they, as well? Yeah,
against your lads.
And then 90 as well. So I mean, there's definitely, 90 is one that they all talk about, don't they? That one that kind of got away from them. And that's the obvious what if, that if you put a guy like that and a guy of that kind of renown, and a guy that established into the side, what he could have done. Just to go back to kind of when you talked earlier about Honan, I think it's worth kind of mentioning him, is because I think that's kind of a tougher one in the sense that injury kind of hit him at a young age after coming out of under 21 ranks, because a guy that still gets to experience some big days at senior level, it's maybe a regret that he didn't kind of get to experience a lot of them. But I think it's kind of tougher on a guy who's had such success at underage. And if you think about that 2009 under 21 championship, that was the kind of start of it really for Clare. I remember covering that Munster final that year down in Dungarvan, and the atmosphere was absolutely incredible for that match. It was the year after the kind of Clare tip controversy, and it was a big thing obviously for Clare to kind of win that 21 championship. But Conan got a goal that night where he had this kind of style of play, where he'd be playing in the full forward, but he'd come out to get the ball, really, really good at swiveling, turning, and just the power and the pace he would get up at. I think the TG Carter game this Sunday, is the Clare Galway game for 2009. If anyone's never seen it, it's well worth catching out. He got a couple of goals that day. It was kind of a duel between him and Joe Canning. So, well, he did get a goal on All-Ireland senior final day, and the one that kind of sealed it for them in 2013. I think there's definitely, more so for the lad himself, that probably a sense of frustration that he probably never really got a clear run at it at senior level.
Absolutely. A couple of Tipperary examples, and they both would have been around the 09-10 era. Pat Currick, thought he was brilliant in 2009 and had a great All-Ireland final. I think he scored a few points. And
he delivered the ball across, Shane, didn't he, for Callanan's one that was saved. It was through the eye of a needle. Remember that? An unbelievable pass. Yeah,
that was brilliant. And then, of course, just injuries. I have it in my head, hip, and then obviously he sung the Galtee Mountain Boy the next year. So that was a fair contribution nonetheless, because that was so good. Seamus Hennessy, a guy who came on in the 2010 All-Ireland, had brilliant underage success. Knee injuries absolutely scuppered his career, because he could have been anything. Like, he was so good, and even in this past year I've seen him in the goals for Killawan McDonough's, but like, you wonder how good he would have been, whether it's like spraying ball from wing back, midfield, even being a target inside. You wouldn't know, but he was so good. I presume you saw him a fair bit, Fintan.
Yeah, and like, Tip got a plenty out of that kind of 06, 07 minor teams. But he's, I suppose you're always probably thinking of the ones that got away. And I mean, like, he made that contribution off the bench in 2010. And, I suppose like the Mars, and obviously have gone on to achieve great things in Noel McGrath. But he probably could have maybe offered something kind of different around the middle, you would have felt. Kind of ball winning, like, was really, really versatile. I remember seeing him play a bit in Fitzgibbon for NUIG, like, was really, really strong. So I'd say there's definitely a sense of regret in Tipperary, because you think they won the All-Ireland in 2010, the gap then till 2016 when the team was kind of undergoing a bit of a transition. Would he have helped kind of bridge that? Would he have offered something around the middle at a time when, hurling was kind of changing a bit and Kilkenny had kind of roared back into contention after 2010? So, like, obviously, look, that's one of the greatest underage teams I think ever in terms of what they achieved afterwards at senior level, but probably a sense of maybe a bit of frustration that the other kind of big prospect out of us never really got a clear run at it.
And I'm thinking now, Gearóid Ryan is another guy who kind of had to retire from Tipperary and had a few injury dogged years as well. Michael, jump in there.
Shane, just on a point that Fintan was saying is, and I'd like to get your own thoughts on what you think, which is worse, to have been there as a young fella and tasted that All-Ireland victory, we'll say, like a Seamus Hennessy, like Dara Honan, and then had it taken away, or to have not had experienced it at all, to have been to that high and then never be able to get to that high again, or to have never got to the high, and I suppose the dream is gone, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure which is worse. Both are bad.
Yeah, I'd say it must be very difficult to know that you have the talent to succeed at that level and then have it taken away from you, to get that little taste and then it's gone forevermore, even when you're of that age that you let's say you're still 27 and you haven't played for 3 or 4 years and you should be there. I'd say that's very, very difficult to take. Maybe as you get older, then you're in your 40s, maybe you might have accepted it at that point, but that must be very, very tough. Fintan?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it comes down to what stage it kind of happens for you. I mean, like, you take someone like Richie Power, he still had achieved an incredible amount between minor, 21, club, senior. It kind of ends from around, I think he was 30, was he, 2015, when he stopped playing. You've a bit of regret that you can't keep going for another 3 or 4 years, but like, you still packed a lot into your career. I think for someone like Honan and Hennessy, getting that taste of it, coming on as a sub, thinking, okay, I've made a contribution off the bench this year, but like, if we can kind of get fit, get a good go at this, I can kind of nail down a starting place, and this team can go to bigger and better things, and we can kind of get back to those heights, and I can be a part of it, and I can kind of drive that on. But it just doesn't work like that. Probably just that sense of maybe kind of unfulfilled talent through no fault of your own. I mean, it's not a case that didn't put in the work or whatever. It's a case of, like, in both cases, kind of really debilitating injuries in terms of knee and hip that never really give them a chance to kind of make an impact. And I wonder as well, like, injuries like that are kind of recurring, that you keep on thinking, is there a bit of light at the end of the tunnel to come back, as opposed to, a couple of other guys that I think we've touched on different times that affected their career. David Tracy did a cruise ship, the Dublin player. Paddy Sullivan broke his leg really badly at one stage in a club match in Cork. That's one big injury, and okay, that's, I can write off the next year. But I often wonder about guys who kind of, it's just consistently injuries that are kind of at them, hamstring or a knee or whatever, and they can't quite get them right. I wonder, is that kind of more frustration for guys to deal with?
Like Paul Schutte would have had that for years, just hamstring injury after hamstring injury, did it off the bone, came back, does it off the bone again. Very tough. Like Richie Power, a quote from an article you did with him, I think a couple of years ago, I played 12 minutes for Kilkenny in 2015. That was after 3 operations. You would have to question, was it worth it? And then separately, you have to wonder how much mismanagement from a physical preparation standpoint, how often was it mismanagement that caused this player's career to ultimately end because of injury, whereas if they were dealt with differently, Michael Verney, maybe they would have been able to recover.
Yeah, possibly so. It's an interesting one because I'm actually chatting Ray Moran, the surgeon, for a piece in tomorrow's paper, and he's kind of saying there is sometimes just an unlucky cohort that have underlying issues that, regardless of how you would have dealt with them, they would have still kind of propped up. Richie Power would probably fall into that. I think he 10 surgeries gotten before he was 30. And and even John Tennyson, remember John Tennyson played the 10 final when the drive for 5 was stopped. He made it the whole way through the final, but should have probably had his cruciate operated on. It didn't actually snap or anything again, and he never got it operated on again, but he was never the same again. Do you know? So it's an interesting one. Just some other interesting comments in as well. You mentioned Paul Schutte in here. It's very rare you'd have someone on this sort of a list that hasn't played inter-county hurling. But Richie Shea has Con in as one. Con O'Callaghan, obviously, we've never actually got to see it. Couple of other interesting ones. Richie Doyle is almost like the forgotten one of Kilkenny hurling. He would have been kind of touted as, obviously no one is the same as JJ Delaney, but he's the same sort of style and a brilliant underage pedigree. I chatted to him a couple of years ago. He had unbelievable hip problems. Got back playing a bit of club, but was kind of struggling with injury throughout his career. Joe Dooley, after taking a right cut at me, my old Offaly boss, he said, "Don't forget to include yourself with a winky face," or a smiley face. So he's definitely messing. Brendan has another one in here, and it'd be interesting to hear Fintan's tossing this. He said Darren Sweetenham was a massive loss to Cork hurling and would have turned into a real top hurler. I feel probably would have been a great centre forward for Cork. He played the 2012 All Ireland semi final, I think, and don't think he played again then.
No, that was pretty much the end of it for him. I guess it's kind of a different debate, as regards guys that have kind of lost other sports. Can't really blame them. I mean, there's plenty of rugby examples, I suppose, in particular over the last few years. But yeah, that was Jimmy Ryan Murphy's first year. I mean, that was a time in Cork, like, underage hurling was going really, really badly. He didn't really come from a successful team or anything. But the thing about him as well is that he was just an incredible sporting all-rounder, I think he played underage hockey for Ireland. He was quite good at badminton and golf as well. Didn't really come from a kind of traditional hurling area in Dunmanway, but made such an impact in 2012. And then there's obviously the what if. Then you're thinking, right, he'd have had a second season under his belt in 2013, would have got better, and the kind of fine margins of that season. So yeah, never really Cork didn't probably get a proper look at him in terms of kind of seeing how we went. But I think it's a different kind of a frustration seeing a guy go in kind of a different sporting direction. And I think the personal frustration, I mean, he made that choice, he kind of went off to rugby. So I think it's a tougher thing for a guy who's decided to go down the hurling road or to get a football road, and then injury just kind of strikes him off course.
Yeah, it's tough to take when you see anyone going from hurling to rugby. Can't say I like it at all. We might do a video on players that have been lost to other sports later down the line. Is there anyone else we've missed before we get on to Who Am I with you, Michael Verney?
Just the last one here, Kevin O'Regan has in here, and I hate to bring up this man, Eamon Taff. Chronic hamstrings and back injuries meant we didn't see enough of him, and he actually had a hamstring injury all of 1995, all during that summer, so played very, very little, and I think he'd picked up another knock when he was getting ready to come off, and then he scored the all-important goal in 95. Tanto Halpy mentioned as well, obviously it wasn't to do with injury, we only saw him at one season, probably someone we'll talk a bit more about maybe in another kind of a video of what might have been just maybe going away from hurling. Philly Maher, obviously, and Willie Maher, two tip lads, obviously. Philly, the great fullback, his career was definitely ended a bit early, and there was one or two other ones here as well. Someone else just said Dermot Connolly and Shane Long on Spot the Dove had Dermot Connolly and Shane Long. I suppose you've had enough good forwards over the last while. You're hardly going to cry about Shane Long considering his exploits against Germany that night in the Aviva.
No, I am going to complain about losing him. He would have made some difference. My brother Paddy played with him at minor level, and Much in all, as Tip have had some great forwards, you couldn't beat a man with that speed and that sort of hand. He would have been unbelievable for Tip during that generation. Funnily enough, the Sunday game team, the RTE Sunday game team of that era came out, and all three of the inside forwards on their team, picked by the public now, were Tipperary men: Nicky English, Seamus Callanan and Owen Kelly. So we're fairly well represented as far as the public is concerned, Fintan.
Yeah, I feel very sorry for your right. You've lost Shane Long when considering how the last decade has gone for you, and the kind of class of forwards you've been able to pick. Interesting that so it's obviously it's a public vote. Hard to know the way these things are going to go, but that it kind of went all down the line of three Tipperary players. You definitely have thought, one, maybe two of them were going to be included. I think you were saying, was it Shefflin and Canning are kind of in the half forward line, so they'd probably be the other two big candidates that people might have thought would slot into the full forward line. But yeah, would have been a nice full forward line to see in action.
Yeah, as a lad said to me, as long as you bypass the half forward line and let it straight into the inside line, you're doing okay. Michael, what about the who am I?
Just a quick one, and anyone that gives in a guess, or either you or Fintan, you're only allowed one guess. You're only allowed one guess, so I would say hold your guess until you know what it is, what you think you know what it is, and you won't know it after the first one. First one is, if you're picking a best 15 not to win an All-Ireland, I'm sure to be on it. So if you're picking a best 15 not to win an All-Ireland, I'm sure to be on it. So pretty open-ended. We'll have a few more clues as we go along.
Fintan, I'm thinking Waterford here, and I'm also thinking Ollie Canning.
Well, I'm going to ask, what's the code? It's definitely Hurling, is it?
It's open-ended, lads. We'll come to it. We'll come to it a bit later.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to our sliding doors moment, which is Wexford footballers in 2011 when they played Dublin. They had themselves in a position, I think, early in the second half, around the 43rd minute. Red Barry found the net, put them 3 points ahead. This was a Dublin team that hadn't won their All-Ireland yet. They hadn't kind of ended that 16-year drought as they would earlier or later in the summer. But if Wexford had to hold on, would that have completely changed the course of history, Fintan?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think it was a big missed chance for Wexford, and it's a big one for them. But I think the reasons for I think Dublin were always going to come good at some stage, given the kind of resources and population and all those kind of, I suppose, advantages that have been discussed. And I think once they were getting organised, and you think that's the same year that Leslie Farrell has that minor team, which has gone on to be the backbone of the kind of senior success. Maybe senior success wouldn't have been to the same level. Would they have come back through the back door in 2011 to win the All-Ireland? Who knows? But I still think there was quite a good chance that Dublin were going to have a successful decade. But it's definitely, I suppose, a real source of regret for that Wexford team, who were coming pretty strong. I mean, you think 3 years before they had got to a Leinster final and got absolutely wiped out by Dublin in Jason Ryan's first year.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, but in fairness, that was the year they did an amazing comeback against Meath, and they beat down Armagh and got the All-Ireland final against Tyrone. So huge progress. Then they just went through a sequence of coming up against Dublin, 10, 11 and 12. Went close a couple of times, but 11 was really the one, especially when it was a Leinster final. And as we've seen now, Leinster is such a different landscape now. Probably must kind of increases the sense of regret all the more.
Yeah, I'd imagine for Wexford, that's probably, I mean, in some ways you could say that is Wexford's last ever chance to win a Leinster title.
You could say that. It looks it looks a million miles away at the moment. If you look how Wexford have fallen off the face of the earth since 2008 semi-final and 2011, the chance they had to beat them. So you kind of could say that, and it was just an unfortunate kind of sequence of events. It was that goal really that did turn it. Redmond Barry got a goal to put them 1-7 to 7 up. Redmond Barry, who has the most amount of championship goals scored on Stephen Cluxton. 4. That's the most of anybody, which is remarkable, really, to have scored 4 goals during that short kind of period. And Wexford were going very, very well under Jason Ryan. As Fintan said, bounced back unbelievably well after that hammering in 08. They were really, really consistent side. Obviously had Matty Ford up top and loads of other names like Redmond Barry, Ben Brosnan, PJ Banville, Graham Malloy, all these sorts of guys as well. Brian Malone even was a young fella back then. But it was that kind of one with Anthony Masterson when the ball came in and he went to palm it away and ended up kind of palming it off one of his own fellas, and it goes into the back of the net. And it's hard to legislate for something like that happening, and it's very hard to pick yourself back up after it as well. It just has it can just kill any momentum that you have, and it kind of did. And it's funny, it took a freak thing that to happen for Dublin to win that game day. There was only 3 points in it, and yeah, I don't know. As Fintan says, yeah, maybe we wouldn't have seen like the 5 in a row that we did, but the first one was the one. The first one was the one that Dublin needed most, and it was the hardest one to get. And there was an awful lot of hardship, and an awful lot of things had to happen with McMenamin's goal and Cluxton's subsequent free at the end in the All Ireland. So like if you don't get the first one, everything else becomes a lot more difficult. So I don't know if it's as clear cut as Dublin would have just dominated anyway, even if they had lost this.
I'll put you like this, Fintan. In 2002, there was obviously that famous Ray Cosgrove free against Armagh. So it's fine margins, and then Dublin don't go on and win in All Ireland for another 9 years. The year before, Dublin were in a great position after coming through the back door, in a great position against Cork, your own county, going down the stretch. They obviously threw it away. Then the league final the next year in 2011, great position against Cork, threw it away. If it had to happen here, another knock to the confidence. You just don't know the wider effect of losing to Wexford, who weren't. I mean, it's unlikely they were going to win in All Ireland. If you were losing to Wexford, the doubts might creep in. Pat Gilroy's kind of belief might waver a little bit. Dublin might draw someone tougher in the semi-final. You know, it's very, well, to be fair, they did draw Donegal. That was very tough. But their route might have been a little bit different. It mightn't have worked out the same.
No, it might not. And I suppose it would have been interesting to see, kind of confidence-wise, how they would have kind of come back from that. Because in fairness, it must have done a lot for them to kind of win ugly, you know, in that game, because of the fact, as you said, they had those couple of close games against the likes of Cork in the league final. You know, while from the outside you're probably going to criticise them at the time for kind of not winning maybe a bit more comfortably. You know, probably what it did is it does give you that kind of sense of resilience, and then they dug it out again against Donegal that year, and then suddenly you're in an All-Ireland final, and you know it's kind of going down the stretch, and you have those memories of, okay, we got over the line against Wexford and Donegal. You know, we can kind of get through in this fashion. But I mean, like, I was looking at, like, so Wexford actually ended up in Limerick in round 4, and at that stage Limerick were a really, really good side, and Limerick beat them by a point in a qualifier in Portlaoise. A bit of controversy, I think, was over a late point in that game. So I suppose that would have been the challenge for Dublin. Would you have been heading out of Croke Park, playing someone like Limerick in Portlaoise, how they kind of would have negotiated that kind of challenge? And the flip side of it is that just what it did for them in terms of kind of getting over the line, and then that next wave of talent that was coming through over the next few years. But I think this is kind of mainly just about Wexford, because, like, as you said, like, it's just hard to see a better chance coming along anytime soon. And I think the thing I remember about that time was that they were kind of one of the few sides in different provinces that, you know, they were kind of the second team of fans, maybe, you know, like Limerick were going for it in Munster, Monaghan and Ulster, and couldn't really get over the line. You know, like Limerick probably had their best chances around then as well. A couple of years against Kerry and Cork, you know, John Galvin was absolutely brilliant. They never really got the chance, and obviously it's completely changed their kind of football prospects now. Whereas Monaghan did manage to get over the line in 2013, and in fairness, they really, really built on it and became a big, consistent force over the rest of the decade. Obviously, different in Wexford and Limerick. I think you have to factor in hurling being a factor, and the kind of the draw and the pull there in terms of kind of dual players going that way. But definitely, probably hard to think of a better chance at Wexford in terms of getting a Leinster Senior Football medal, those group of players.
And when we just briefly chatted beforehand, you were talking about Bernard Brogan's performance that day. Came in as Footballer of the Year, and then it really didn't go his way against Wexford.
Yeah, I was kind of reading back on it and looking at it, like, and it just seems like one of the big talking points after the game, which I don't even recall now until I'd seen this, was that the decision to take him off, because I suppose, like, for a guy to win Footballer of the Year and not even have contested an All-Ireland final, that kind of shows the level of performances he summed up. He was serving up in 2010. He was sensationally good. Like, I think that, like, they beat Wexford that year, and he kind of dug them out of a hole in that game. Maybe a Leinster quarter or a Leinster semi before they lost the Meath. So obviously all the focus and all the attention was on him in that game in 2011. And he scored 2 points from 10 shots, which is obviously very unusual, kind of inaccuracy levels. And I think, like, that was the year he had got the winning point against Kildare in the semi-final by a point. It had been kind of a bit of a controversy as regards a late free that they won to beat Kieran McGeeney. So he was the main guy. He was the guy that they were all kind of talking about. And maybe it kind of points as well to, you think of Dublin now, you know, if one forward doesn't shine, there's about 3 or 4 further other options. You know, like, haven't seen back the video of this game now, but, like, is it a case that, you know, when Bernard wasn't doing it, where the other players starting to get a bit worried, you know, who's going to get the scores that are key for us this day? And it was James McCarthy got the second goal, which proved kind of key, and obviously they got the own goal for the first. So there's definitely not that issue for Dublin football anymore, as regards being 2 reliant on just one forward to shine.
Yeah, I just wonder about the butterfly effect of that, losing that, the confidence. Do you then go on and win as many All-Irelands as you do? Okay, so people, get your comments in. Let us know if you think that was a massive sliding doors moment in football.
Just lastly, Shane, that rivalry of Dublin and Wexford, like Wexford had taken Dublin to extra time the year before in the Leinster quarter-final and were up by 7 points like early in the second half. The year after, they played in the Leinster quarter-final again and were up 1-8 to 1-5 at half-time, and Dermot Conley got sent off and McMenamin comes on and scores a goal. You know, we're talking about sliding doors. If Wexford beat them in the 2011 final that we're talking about, do those things happen? Is there a confidence there that you can go and beat this team? So it's kind of a cause and kind of effect. You know, if they had gotten over the line, maybe they would have had the confidence and, you know, the wherewithal to actually finish them off when they play them again.
Absolutely. So people, get your comments in. We'll move on to who am I, the second clue there, Michael.
Yep. The second clue is thus. Positions don't really matter to me. I'm flexible with where I can play.
Jeez, does that narrow it down, Fintan?
Possibly in a couple of hurling instances. There's two candidates I'm thinking who kind of won.
Ken McGrath. Has to be Ken McGrath.
Shane, it's not Ken McGrath. That's your guess gone. Good man.
Fintan.
Okay. Ollie Canning?
No, it's not Ollie Canning.
Yeah, he's definitely flexible in terms of playing with Portumna, but in the county scene, pretty much always in the backs, or certainly cornerback.
I have you here. No, I have you here. You get it with the last clue, but I have you here. I kept it nice and open ended as a result, and you couldn't hold it. You had to just let go. You had to fire off after the second clue.
All right, okay, let's move on to our third item of the day. What's the best rivalry in GAA? So myself and Michael did a video on Thursday about the Cork versus Tipperary rivalry and wearing the Orga retro jerseys. And I ended up throwing up a poll on Twitter just to see what did people think it was. So based on some of the comments I had got in, I looked at Tipperary versus Cork, Dublin, Kerry, Galway, Mayo, and then others, so please comment. At the moment, Dublin, Kerry is ever so slightly leading it, but there's a huge amount of comments coming in, and that poll will be open for a good while yet. Just a couple of the comments, Michael Verney. Anything in particular catch your eye?
No, Shane, nothing has caught my eye because I haven't looked at them yet, being honest with you, because I didn't see the poll. So you chat away there and I'll find a few comments.
Okay, I'll find them myself. You're no good to anyone. So John Walsh is saying Kilkenny versus Wexford. The Judge Goodmark says merely the fact that it's excluded from your provocative little poll proves that Kilkenny versus Tipperary is the greatest rivalry in GAA history. But is it like, I mean, could you really compare the Tipperary-Kilkenny rivalry over the course of the history to Tip against Cork? Because Tip and Cork have played somewhere between 85 and 90 times. Tip and Kilkenny have played far fewer, something like 30, 12-8 to Tipperary in All-Ireland finals, of course. There's no, you had to drag that out of me. What do you think, Fintan, as a Cork man?
I think this is your way to try and forget about that kind of Munster-Leinster border that you kind of share in one part of the county, is it? And just focus on a different rivalry. Are we looking here like over the kind of entirety of the GA history? Is it a particular spells?
I think it's over the course, but like if you think that there was a concentrated period that made a rivalry so brilliant, then fair enough, it kind of deserves mention. Because like Dublin Kerry, they probably for many decades or for certain periods they wouldn't have met that often, whereas Tip and Cork for 100 years plus 130 years they're meeting pretty much every year or every second year at worst.
Yeah, well I would think kind of Dublin Kerry is kind of one that kind of stands out nationally. I mean, the thing with Tip Cork, like from what I kind of think in the 90s it seemed like Cork were getting knocked out of the championship by Clare when I kind of started getting into hurling, and maybe Limerick. And then in the noughties it was Cork Waterford really was kind of a rivalry that kind of stood out for me, because I mean they weren't just like I know Cork Kilkenny had that kind of time they were playing in finals and all that, but I mean the frequency of the Cork Waterford meetings, they were playing each other in the Munster Championship, and then loads of years they were ending up against each other again in Croke Park. And I think the kind of drama in that period and the kind of characters involved, like there's a lot of big personalities on both sides. So like as regards a really concentrated spell, I mean like you go back to the 80s and Cork were in the complete ascendancy in the early 80s over Waterford, but that definitely changed in that kind of noughties periods. And I'm not even just talking about like I think people are kind of sick of seeing the 04 Munster final kind of talked about at this stage. I mean, I think there was other games like that, the 07 drawing game in Croke Park, the 06 semi-final in the rain, like, you know, and like the 07 semi-final replay. Like those couple of seasons, like I think they served up some absolutely brilliant matches. And then like a lot of it as well then comes down with rivalry, comes down to, I suppose, kind of geographical proximity. It does stoke it up. I mean, I remember like they never really played each other. But someone saying to me before 2018, before Galway played Clare, there would be a big hurling rivalry in a certain pocket between the counties, but it's never really kind of expressed because they don't see each other that often. But it kind of came out that year. I mean, you talk about the Kilkenny Wexford one. That's probably one that jumps out because, you know, you have a lot of Kilkenny guys would have gone to school saying New Ross. You know, there's people kind of, you know, working as well, I suppose, is the thing, you know, kind of everyday life, isn't it? If you're kind of interacting with the counties, Waterford, Kilkenny would have kind of talked about that as well. But I think over kind of the wider history, I think Dublin Kerry is the one that kind of stands out in football. I know what you're saying in terms of they went a long stage without meeting each other, and at times you're thinking, is that it's kind of too weighted or too focused on the kind of the nostalgia of the 70s and 80s? But you take last year's 2019 games, I know there's just something about that pairing. As a neutral, kind of watching it, it kind of elevated it a bit when I was at those games.
Yeah, I'll throw to you in a second, Michael. Pat Gleeson came in with a good comment. Pat Gleeson at Drangan. The back door has diminished the Tip Cork rivalry, in my opinion. The great John Doyle, who was a critic of the back door, once said he'd hate to wake up on a Monday after beating Cork the day before to the news that Cork were still in the championship. So that's probably a fair one. And I'd say similarly to Cork Kerry in football, that because you know they can meet again later in the summer, and they've probably met at least 20 times in the championship during this century. I'd probably say similarly for Tyrone Armagh, which has obviously had some unbelievable games over the years, Michael.
Yeah, it's probably diluted somewhat. Like if you're looking back through the history of a rivalry, I think Tip Cork in hurling and Dublin and Kerry stand tall, well tall above anything else. But like we did the Orga Retro rivalry video the other day, and we didn't talk about hardly any game between the two since the back door was brought in. You know, we talked about the 2010 game and maybe a bit about 06, but I mean, like, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, and when you know they're going to play in the Munster Championship every year and could play again, we didn't talk about any of those games. So it does possibly dilute a rivalry. But I think historically, when you go back through it and knowing that they were going to play most years, or in particular, they were going to play most Munster finals, there's some great yarns. Like, I don't know if you'll beat the Tip Cork yarns just back through history. If you're talking about nationally over two counties, Dublin and Kerry probably is it, and it's the opposite effect of not playing each other every year. It's that every year that goes past when they don't play each other, you just, oh geez, I wish Dublin would play Kerry. Yeah, this Dublin team is unreal, but what would it be like if Kerry get them in an All-Ireland final? And just speaking from a kind of a local point of view, Offaly hurling rivalries, not massive, particularly in the last while, because we're kind of gone down the pecking order. But in football, Offaly Westmeath is a brilliant rivalry. Over around Tubber and Moat, where you're on a border, absolute hatred. A lot of them in Tubber would have went to the school in Moat and Moat Community College as well. I know Bernard Allen would have went there, and he probably would have played against Westmeath when Desi Dolan would have been teaching him in Moat. Absolute hatred. It's hard to go against it. My uncle was actually vice chairman in Westmeath at the county board, but he's a born and bred for man, so he used to absolutely love it. He'd be absolutely stalking it up. But that's probably the local rivalry that stands out most to me.
Fintan, Barry Cleary replied saying the Galway Tipperary one, and he said 30 years, 7 wins each, and the trilogy of 15, 16, 17. That was the best I've ever seen. 2 games where neither team had more than a 1-score lead. It's a super rivalry. But would you put that up there among the best historically? I mean, there was probably 60 or 70 years where they weren't really meeting each other, but does that matter anymore? Because can we go with recency bias and say that is now the cream of the crop?
Yeah, I get what you're saying about historically, and I think if that's the kind of criteria, then I know what you mean about the kind of Cork Tip, because they played each other so regularly. But I think Michael's you're making a good point there about the kind of dilution of it with the Black Door, and even more so now with the round robin. It's great, but you take something like Cork and Tip played a really good game. Was at 18? It was a great draw in Thurles. But I mean, that game doesn't really stand out because there was so much other stuff happened that summer, and they were both still in the championship and all that. I think the games that kind of elevate a rivalry were probably the ones where one team landed a knockout blow, which is why probably the Kilkenny Tip one, because they were all Ireland finals. And yeah, there was never any kind of a safety net when Kilkenny and Tip were playing in championship. But like that Galway Tip, it's probably it's not really kind of talked about a lot. I mean, like, you think Galway Tip, maybe people talk about the kind of late 80s, that kind of rivalry at the time when it was All-Ireland finals on the line. But those semi-finals are absolutely brilliant, and I think they'll definitely stand the test of time. And the stories in terms of, like, Shane Maloney wasn't on the panel, I think, at the start of 15. He comes back in and gets the winning point at the end of that game. The way Tipperary, I don't think there was a winning score, was there, in 16? I think they were up by 2 and Galway got one back, but couldn't play it back any further. And then obviously Joe Canning's point in 17 and the stuff as well. I think what made that interesting was to say, Eamon O'Shea's role, he's heavily involved in Galway Club GA, lives and works there, involved in Tipperary. Micheál Donoghue kind of had a foot in both camps over a couple of years as well. And just the standard of hurling and the fact that they both kind of went through, while a lot of those Tip fellas had a medal, the fact that they won to get a second one was a big thing for them. The duels between the likes of Callan and Daithí Burke, Callan getting 3-9, 15. So yeah, I think that's a good modern day one in terms of kind of close competitiveness. But rivalry, I suppose, is all about kind of fans, really, isn't it? And that's why I think border is kind of key to it.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of comments in about different ones. Dwayne Mulgrew, Tyrone versus Armagh, Donegal, Derry, Kerry or Dublin. Thomas Brown said Dublin and Meath for a few years, but of course because Meath are completely under the thumb, it's hard to say that one is anymore. Brian McGrada says Tyrone, Derry, and then Oran Waldron says Tip and Kilkenny by a mile, Michael.
Yeah, Tip and Kilkenny is a fair rivalry. Just when you're looking down through the whole history of it all, like you're going back, like it's more so even than Dublin Kerry probably. It's been going on because hurling there's going to be fewer counties involved and their neighbours and everything, and down around South Tip, and there's like, Eddie Brennan, I was doing a live show with him last year, and someone had a lovely little quip to him about how does it feel knowing that your kids are going to grow up playing for Tipperary and this kind of crack, because he was living in Tipperary and he was married to a Tipperary woman. And you can see what I love about the Tip Kilkenny rivalry is yeah, good man, you could have a couple of nippy forwards. What I love about it is that there is a fair hatred. The more than Tomás Mulcahy said about the hatred between Cork and Tip, there is a fair old hatred, and it was bitter enough between Tip and Kilkenny there, particularly 2009, 10, 11, because it was kind of like a clash of styles almost, and a clash of cultures as well. That's kind of what I liked about that. Rivalries are diluting though, so I would say probably the one, yeah, Munster wise or provincially, I'd say Tip and Cork. Nationally, Dublin and Kerry.
Galway Mayo is worth mentioning too. I mean, Galway had an awful lot of wins there in the last couple of years, but to some degree, was their rivalry overtaken a little bit by Mayo's unbelievable games with Dublin? And again, it comes back to that whole thing with All Ireland's been on the line, Fintan.
I think it does. And well, I mean, you think in 98, everyone's only watched the year from Sunday numerous times. The year starts that year with a win over Mayo. And obviously Mayo then kind of come back and beat them in 99. And at that stage, they were both going for All-Ireland finals, and obviously Galway got over the line. But then more recently, it just feels like Mayo were absolutely wiping the floor with them. Was it 13? They destroyed them in Salt Hill. And then once Galway kind of got back at them in 16, they couldn't kind of stop beating them. But the fact that it didn't kind of transfer into All-Ireland successes, and that's the thing about the Tip Kilkenny hurling one, I think, because they're not in the same province. So when they meet, it's in the All-Ireland series. And save for the 2013 qualifier, it's generally been in a final or a couple of maybe semi-finals, but it's when everything is on the line. And because you're meeting regularly, and if you're in different provinces, and invariably means you're the top two sides in the country, which is why probably the Dublin Mayo one in football kind of was elevated a bit, maybe a bit over the last decade. So I think it kind of needs that, the All-Ireland finals, to kind of be on the line to really, I suppose, maybe whip up the intensity of it. Like Cork Kilkenny, the 03-06 kind of got pretty heated around that time. Then Tip Kilkenny kind of took it over in the hurling sense, and then I suppose football has been Dublin Mayo. Would have been kind of maybe Tyrone Kerry, I suppose, before that, the kind of 3 times they met, because so much was on the line. And then I guess, well, most people would predict that it's going to be a Dublin Kerry one. That, well, it was a brilliant game of football to watch last year. If I suppose familiarity breeds contempt. Might be a factor that can kind of develop over the next few years.
Yeah, and a few people have kind of messaged in saying the fact that so many Mayo people work in Galway, that adds to the sort of fun, and as he described it, banter that they'd have. I'd say it'd be similar between Limerick and Clare also, because right there in the Shannon, they're right beside each other. Anyone else?
That one, Shane, I asked funnily enough, I asked Aaron Cunningham. I interviewed him there about 2 months ago, and I asked him, he was obviously away there for a while, and I said, like, your father Alan is involved with Limerick, like, does that leave you, like, would you be wanting Limerick to win? He's just, oh God, no, like, if anything, it has the opposite effect, like. And a lot of the Clare boys will go to college in either LIT or UL as well, or Mary I. So yeah, that's definitely a big rivalry in Munster on the West Coast.
You have the thing there as well about kind of city boundaries, off the pitch over the last couple of years. Parts of Clare, there's been talks about city council, maybe parts of Clare going to Limerick, and similar has happened, I think, was in Waterford City reclaiming bits of South Kilkenny. But like the point there about kind of Limerick Clare, like I know a couple of Limerick friends were pretty glad that they were playing Galway in the 2018 final. They reckon mentally it would have kind of spooked them a bit, and the whole build up and all that, if it ended up being a Limerick Clare final. Because I suppose you remember 13 semi-final, there was so much hype after Limerick had won Munster, and then Clare took them down, and there hadn't been too many instances where they'd met in kind of big matches in Croke Park. But like they're two counties that kind of strike me as well. They're kind of so intertwined between work and college and all that. A bit similar to maybe what you're talking about at Galway Mayo. Maybe a lot of Mayo lads go to college in Galway, but definitely with the couple of colleges in Limerick, it's kind of hard to get away from each other, and the boundaries become a bit blurred there.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to get in any comments and put us right on that, let us know. Michael Verney, the final clue.
We actually have 2 clues, boys, because we only got through 2 so far. So the first one is, if you're picking a best 15 not to win All Ireland, I'm sure to be on it. Second one is, positions don't really matter, I'm flexible and I can play anywhere. Big or small, it doesn't matter, I can play both.
Doesn't really narrow it down for me, Fintan.
No.
Last clue is, I come from hurling country, but I'm best known as a footballer.
I don't know.
Lovely. I kind of reeled you in there. I just slowly. He thought you had it, and now he thought you had it after the first clue, and now after the 4th clue, you have no idea.
Go ahead, Fintan. Have another guess there.
Declan Brown.
Not Declan Brown.
Right.
I was actually thinking Declan Brown there as well, but
I'll throw it up online and see. Someone will get it fairly quickly, I'd say, when they have all the clues together, but we'll see.
Okay, right. I'm frustrated with this one, Fintan.
Yeah, we'll have to wait.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, lads.
Cheers, Shane.